Welcome to Paranormal Palace Radio, where truth equals reality, and truth is often stranger than fiction.
Hello everyone, welcome to Paranormal Palace Radio. This is your host, Royce the Redneck Radio Man, and joining me today, or actually returning today, is Gordon Gianninoto. And today we're going to be talking about moon anomalies that he's been observing recently, and exactly what that has to means for us and what have you. And this is like new material for me, so I'm going to let him guide me through this. I mean, I know people see pictures on the moon and things on the moon all the time, like Richard Hoagland, but I don't really keep up to date and current on it, and Gordon here does, so he's going to be a big help to me with this. Actually, he's going to be doing the show mostly. But, Gordon, how you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing really well, and I love being on your show, Royce, and I love the fact that you put it on YouTube and the other channels where people can find it really easily without being a member and without paying a membership fee. And thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome, but I'd also like my listeners to know that I have my own archive, just like YouTube's, if y'all want to listen to it at my site as well. Who doesn't want a little traffic to their site? But at any rate, Gordon, you was telling me that there's got a lot of new things going on out there on the moon. What exactly is going on?
Well, there's different things. There's the moon seems to be going sideways from Earth. That's one thing, and that proves Earth wobble. So we can discuss that. And then there's a brand new movie. It's so beautiful that I hope all of your listeners watch it. It's called Celestial by Jose Escamilla, and it's on YouTube. And that's what you look up, Celestial. And it's a 1-hour movie. And oh my God, the things you're going to see on the moon will just blow your mind. And then you've got, as a separate topic, you've got a contest going with 23 rovers being built to go to the moon and roam around. And NASA doesn't want those rovers to look at the Apollo sites. So I really want to discuss that also.
Okay.
Where would you like to start?
Well, for one thing, I thought I'd go ahead and get this one out of the way. When I posted reminders in the groups this morning, I got one back in Conspiracy Theory UFO from Kirk, and I believe you know who Kirk is, since we're all three in the same group.
I call him a skeptic.
Well, this is kind of a skeptical request that he's made of me. He's asked me he says, I can't listen, but please try to coax some actual science facts out of Gordon about the pole shift and also about what he claims about the moon. So, I guess one place we can start is, do you have a response for him?
Yeah, and hi, Kirk, when you do listen to it, because it's going to be archived, so it'll be there waiting for you. And Kirk is probably my biggest skeptic because he does not believe that I could be in contact with extraterrestrials, or pretty much that anyone else can. And he also believes, I believe that he believes, you know how that goes, that if anyone is in contact, they're not in contact with Zetas. So, there's nothing I can do to twist his arm and convince him about that. But let me just say that I live on a mountaintop in the middle of the Maine coast, so I like to take pictures of the full moon. So on July 3rd, which is the night before the full moon, the moon rises just before the sun sets. So I like to take pictures, and Janet and I, that's my wife, and I had just drilled a hole in the granite and put a metal pole up 10 feet tall and put up an U.S. flag type windsock. It's got blue with stars at the mouth of it, and then it's got the red and white stripes trailing from it. And I thought it would look really cool, so I got up on this granite bench that I had, and the full moon was rising behind it. So I thought, well, I'll take a picture. But it turned out that it was a little too dark to, if I got the moon, I couldn't get the windsock, and if I got the windsock, I couldn't get the moon. So instead I decided to zoom in on the top of the mountain and photograph the moon rising. So as I was standing on the bench, I was being eaten alive by mosquitoes. It was like insane. And I'm hand-holding the camera, and I have been a professional photographer making money from pictures since 1960. So I have a lot of experience, and I also have won a lot of marksmanship medals from the NRA and stuff like that. So I'm very good at holding my hands still. So I took a picture, and the camera takes, I don't know how long it takes to cycle, but first it takes the picture, it processes it, then it shows it on an LED screen, and then the screen clears back to the through the lens, and you can take another picture. I think that the whole thing's probably anywhere from 5 to 20 seconds. So without moving, I took a second picture, and I was just being eaten alive by mosquitoes, so I came in and I downloaded them into the computer, and I'm looking at them, and somehow, magically, I had not moved my arm even 1 centilla. So this is a 12 megapixel picture of the moon and the top of the mountain. And the top of the mountain had a metal table, had some grass in front of the table, and you can see picture to picture that the edge of the frame is the same on both pictures. So I really didn't move my arms, which people find that hard to believe to begin with. But anyway, in the second picture, 5 seconds later, the moon has moved 1 degree east and is blurred. Now, the table's not blurred. The grass that's growing in front of the table's not blurred. The granite mountaintop is not blurred, but the moon is blurred. And, of course, the moon doesn't move sideways. But as seen from Earth, it does, because Planet X is in between the Earth and the Sun, and it's causing the Earth to wobble. So when it wobbles, the moon appears to move sideways, which, of course, the moon's not moving sideways. The sky moves upward 1 degree every 4 minutes. So if you go out and you see the moon rise, 4 minutes later it should be 1 degree higher in the sky. 4 minutes after that, it should be another 1 degree. But here, in less than 20 seconds, the moon had moved 1 degree south, which means the North Pole of Earth, because I'm in Maine, had moved to the left, north. So that's the Earth wobble, and I captured it. And then I sent that to Nancy Leader at Zeta Talk, and they had a guy who made a GIF file out of that. So it's like a short movie with 2 frames, and it just keeps repeating over and over again. And you can see the moon is on the left, and then it goes to the right. And then it's on the left, and then it goes to the right, because there's only 2 frames in this movie, but they repeat over and over again. And this is true. There's lots of other evidence of that. There's a geostationary satellite image of the Earth, and they take the still frames that it shoots, and they make those into a movie by adding the frames consecutively. And you can see the Earth wobble back. The North Pole moves away from the satellite and then towards the satellite. And then there's other things where people have said that the sun is rising too far north, or it's rising too far south, or the sun is setting too far north or setting too far south. And then there's the height of the moon above the sky. The sun and the moon should basically be within a 23-degree angle of the ground in the height of the sky. But there have been times when I've stepped out during the full moon here in Maine and had the moon so far overhead, which should never happen, that the shadow of my head just barely covers my shoes. So, if Kirk doesn't want to call that science, fine. You can lead people to water, but you can't make them drink. So, and there's all kinds of skeptics. I meet them all over the place. And then there's lots of people that get really excited and like, oh my God, this is absolute proof. The Earth is wobbling. What's causing it to wobble? Well, that's the next question, is that Planet X is in between the Earth and the Sun, and the magnetic North Pole of Planet X is pointed at the equator of the Earth like a flashlight, and 2 North Poles repel each other, so it's pushing the North Pole of the Earth away, and then it wobbles back, and then it gets away, and that's causing the Gulf Stream, which normally goes west to east in the northern hemisphere and east to west in the southern hemisphere. That's making giant loops in the Gulf Stream. And that's why you have this strange weather where on both sides of the Atlantic, you have absolute rain. I mean, I feel like I've been living in a rainforest. We've had 3/4 of a year's worth of rain in a 6-week period. And but then the middle of the country and Eastern Europe and Russia are in absolute drought conditions. So, and the reason why this repeats is because the Great Atlantic Rift is a crack going down the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and it's an upwelling of iron magma. And as the Earth turns, the Atlantic Ocean faces the sun, and in a line between the Earth and the sun, below that line is where Planet X is. So it grabs the Atlantic Rift and pulls the North Pole down towards it. And then as the Earth turns to the east more, the Atlantic Rift goes over the horizon from not only the sun but also Planet X. Planet X releases it, and then it goes back to the North Pole of Planet X, pushing our North Pole away. So this is a daily pattern that repeats, and that's why it isn't something that's changing gradually, like the drought is moving east or the drought is moving west. This is happening on a daily basis. So the question is the government going to announce that, yes, there is a planet between the Earth and the sun, and it is affecting the weather, and if they do announce that, are they going to minimize it and say, well, don't worry, don't leave your job, yeah, the food situation is going to be bad this winter, but, there might be some earthquakes, might be a few volcanoes, and a little bit of sloshing of the ocean, but don't worry, you can go back to sleep, because if anything big's going to happen, we'll be the first to tell you.
Once we think you're awake.
Yeah, so it's like, a message to the sheeple. So does anybody expect them to really say what's going on? No, not at all. And they don't know how fast it's coming towards the Earth. It seems to be stopped in space, which I've explained on your other shows that I discovered that gravity pushes, it doesn't pull, and therefore there's no chance of a collision. It's not like it's going to hit the sun or it's going to hit the Earth. But what it's doing is it's just stopped the Earth in its orbit, which seems like that would be impossible too. But I had mentioned in a previous show that recently there was news that the rate of expansion of the universe is increasing. So physicists all agree the universe is expanding, but it's not only expanding, because if there was a Big Bang and everything went outward, you would expect it to expand. But then you would figure if gravity pulls that the expansion would slow down, and then everything would come to a stop, and then it would start collapsing on itself, and eventually there'd be another Big Bang. So for physicists to say the rate of expansion of the universe is accelerating is admitting that gravity pushes, because if that's true, what I said, then, which I'm saying that it is true, then that means the universe would continue to expand at a greater and greater rate always, and there wouldn't be a second Big Bang. So these are interesting thoughts, but nevertheless, if we're stopped in orbit, Planet X is stopped in its orbit, they're blocking each other's way, and then you have this wobble going on. So it isn't like Planet X is going to come in and hit us in a month or 6 months. Nobody really knows the date. Supposedly, the Zetas, and I know Kirk won't like this, but the extraterrestrials say that they're not going to announce when it's going to happen unless it's a worldwide announcement to all media simultaneously, so that the average person knows. Because the thinking is that if the elite could know the date without telling anybody, they would wait until the last minute and try and get rid of as many useless eaters as they could. And then they would be kings of the earth after pole shift, because there'd be so few people left to fight for the limited resources that will be left. So that's the reason why the Zetas say that they'd be glad to tell everybody the exact date of pole shift, but only if it's a worldwide press conference with all the media present. And so honestly,
you're breaking up, Gordon. Uh-oh.
Well,
Gordon, can you hear me?
No.
Ladies and gentlemen, we seem to be experiencing some technical difficulties.
So, the thing is
Gordon? I'm not sure, but I think that our guest is having technical difficulty on his end.
Boy, can you hear me at this point?
I think I can. I just heard the last few words you said, but you've been breaking up quite a bit.
Well, I'm trying to get improved internet service, but this is the best I can do on this remote mountain site where I am. So, you know, I could call in on my cell phone, or we could continually hang up and then reconnect.
Oh, is that what you just had to do, is reconnect?
Yeah. I hung up and then reconnected because you said I was breaking up.
Okay. Well, we could try one more time and see where it goes. But Ladder Reese was just you said something about eaters. She wanted to know if you meant humans.
Yeah, no, I was saying what the elite think of the population is that after pole shift they're just going to get in the way. So if they knew when pole shift was, they would kill as many people as possible, probably using bio warfare.
Uh-oh. Gordon, if you can hear me, maybe you ought to try me on your cell phone. Bear with us, folks. We'll try to get this reestablished here in just a second. Gordon, you might want to try me back on your cell phone. It just happened again.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
You want me to call you on the cell phone?
What do you think? Because you've,
Well, I don't know. I just, the only thing to do really when the bars go to gold and red and then it says I've lost the call, the only thing to do really is to, hang up and then call you back, and it seems to get better for a short time.
All right. I guess we'll do the best we can then. Maybe you'll get, better internet in the near, future.
Yeah, they're upgrading. See, I have broadcast internet, so they're upgrading the towers, and they've spent a lot of money. They got 65 towers they're going to upgrade, and so I'm hopeful that I'll be able to double my bandwidth soon.
Okay.
But so what I was saying with this moon picture, these two pictures of the moon rising at the full moon in the beginning of July, was that I actually recorded from the ground the Earth wobble. So I took two pictures, one after the other, and in the second one, the moon is moved sideways, and it's blurred because the Earth is wobbling back. And being at sunset, that means that the Atlantic Ocean, because I'm on the west side of the Atlantic Ocean on the east coast of North America, so the iron bar that's the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, the Great Atlantic Rift, had just gone over the horizon as the Earth turned from Planet X. So instead of having the North Pole pointing towards the sun, it was being pushed back away from the sun, and that's why I got that picture. So I was very pleased to actually get physical photographic proof of this Earth wobble. But there's plenty of other proof of it, but I was pleased that I was able to do that, and it was totally inadvertent. It's just because I wanted to take two quick pictures, see how they looked, and then get outside where all the mosquitoes were eating me. Okay.
Well, one of the questions that we had for you in chat was, are you in contact with ET?
Yes, and I'm not telepathic where I receive messages that I can type out. Like if you ask me a question that I would get the answer, but intuitively I get the answer, and if somebody says something, I know if it's true or not. but I have actually heard extraterrestrials speak in my mind, and it's as clear as if somebody were standing next to me speaking. And that was the very first time that they came to take me up on a flying saucer. I heard the message, "We're on a saucer and we're coming to take you on board." And that was spoken right into my head, but it sounded like somebody was sitting next to me talking to me, but there wasn't anybody there. And then a saucer zoomed out of the sky and slowed down, and it was going above my car, following my car at 50, 60 miles an hour, 100 feet up. And it kept on doing that for mile after mile, and finally it zoomed ahead, and when I came around a curve, it was blocking the road. So I pulled the car over, jumped out, ran over to it, it lifted up, the bottom of the saucer opened up, and a green light, a very faint green light, came up and picked me up from the ground and brought me into the bottom of the saucer. And I spent 4 hours talking to humans from the Pleiades. And these people are so like us that they could walk down any street on Earth and you would not know they were from another planet.
Yeah, I've heard about that. Extraterrestrials looking just like humans almost. Now, Jennifer had asked a couple of questions that, I'm kind of lost on them, so I'm pretty sure you may be too, but if I tell you what they are, maybe she'll clarify. One of them is, do they know which ones to kill first? Like, do they have files on us? Or I guess, which people to kill first. So she's assuming that...
The government. I think she's talking about the government, and no, I think they're thinking there's not going to be any more factories, there's not going to be any more manufacturing, so all the food that's stored, have you ever heard that there's only 3 days worth of food in a grocery store?
No, I haven't.
Well, think about it. So, what they're thinking is, if there isn't going to be any more clothing manufactured or anything, then there's a lot of clothing and there's a lot of food and there's a lot of stuff out there. But if they killed off all the people who aren't the elite, the common man, if they killed off as many of the common man as they could, and then pole shift happened, they would never be caught for their crimes. And then after pole shift, there wouldn't be so many people competing for so few resources.
Well, that would make sense.
So it isn't like they have a file on who they want to kill, because basically if they want to kill you, they'll just go out and kill you. And there's plenty of people who wanted to speak out on this that really had credentials, astronomers and people like that who have ended up dead.
Yeah, especially under the Clinton administration.
Oh, people were dropping like flies.
But another question she asked that I didn't understand was, that's the reason for our Social Security numbers? There was something you said that I think I missed.
No, I'm not talking anything about... There is going to be no rescue after pole shift. There's going to be no government, no religion, no banks, and no economy. So a Social Security number, you can just kiss it goodbye. You can have you know how they burn their mortgage? When they pay off their mortgage, they have a burn the mortgage party?
Yeah.
Well, you can burn your Social Security number and you're never going to need it again. If there's no government, what good is it? Unless you like it. Change your name to your Social Security number. Say, well, my name is 007.
No, I'm 5 alive. But
So there you go.
I'm pretty sure, I don't know if she meant after the pole shift or why they have Social Security numbers now, in other words.
Well, I mean, I'm on Social Security. I don't know about you, but, I'm going to be 64 in October, and the economy's really bad, and I wasn't able to work as much as I wanted to. So, they said, well, you could wait till you're 70 and get this amount, or you could take it right now, and that would be roughly half. And I said, half is good.
Didn't want to wait.
But, the thing is that it's my money. I mean, I paid it into the Social Security system, so.
Exactly. Now she's asking, are they killing us off now as we speak with the EM weapons?
No. there's a lot of people that are really sensitive to electromagnetic pulses, and I have a Gauss meter, and I've gone around and checked everything. I've stood underneath cell towers. I've stood next to electric meters. Nothing registers. But when you pick up your cell phone and make a call, and I put that Gauss meter near the phone, it goes right to red and starts beeping, and the red lights start flashing. The same with TVs, microwaves, and so a lot of the things that people are using, and I've heard people say, well, this is really destroying us now, but I don't believe it. I'm not sensitive to that at all, and I have a shortwave license, so I'm not scared of radio waves at all. I've never felt an effect from them. I'm always on my computer all day long, and I'm on my cell phone if I'm not on my computer. So I don't know. I could be extremely damaged and not know it, couldn't I, Royce?
I'm imagining we all are.
So if you don't mind, I'll move right along to the rovers.
Okay.
They're going to Mars.
Go ahead.
Now, the government has had a contest. And, you can see NASA doesn't have a lot of money to put into their budget, especially for rovers. So they've had a contest where they're going to give a huge prize, and I don't know how big it is. I think it's $20 million, but it might be more, to the first rover to go to the moon and do X, Y, and Z. They have like a list of what it has to accomplish. The first one to do it. So all these people applied, and 23 of them were certified. And this is mostly private universities or universities. There's a few corporations, but it's mostly universities. So right now, this minute, as we're talking, there are teams, 23 teams around the world, but mostly in the United States, designing and building rovers to go to the moon to capture this money. I think it's called the X Prize, but I may be wrong. But anyway, so that sounds pretty exciting. If you're a computer scientist and you love robotics and you can build a rover and have your rover sent to the moon and land and win the prize, I mean, how great is that? So that's all very exciting, and who knows what they're going to discover. I mean, I'm about to tell you what they're going to discover, but from their point of view, who knows what they're going to discover. But then all of a sudden NASA, and this has been going on for more than a year, NASA 6 months ago announced, don't you dare go near any of the Apollo landing sites. And especially because, and this was their excuse, they said they're all historic. And they said, don't go near these historic Apollo landing sites. Stay hundreds of yards away. But especially don't go near Apollo 11, and they increased the distance. I think it was 1/4 of a mile. Don't go within 1/4 of a mile of Apollo 11, and don't go within half a mile of Apollo 17. So I don't know about you, Royce, but if I had my own rover on the moon, the first place I would go would be Apollo 11 and 17, because they told me not to go near them.
I never heard of that. That sounds kind of unusual. I mean...
Oh, yeah. So that really puzzled everybody, because the first reaction is, nobody owns the moon. Nobody can tell you where you can't. If you're on the moon, whether you're there physically yourself or you've got a rover, nobody can tell you where you can go and where you can't go, because they don't have the right to do that. Nobody owns the moon. And then everybody started thinking, well, what is NASA really saying here with this? And they figured it out. Apollo 11 and Apollo 17 landed intentionally in the midst of alien ruins. Proof of extraterrestrials. And if you go to Apollo 11 and Apollo 17, the minute you get there, you're going to see alien ruins as far as the eye can see. And you're going to know that NASA has been lying to the world for 40 years, looking for life, and they already had it. They knew not only is there life, but there's humanoid life that made buildings and used them, and some of them are still being used. So, absolute proof that there are extraterrestrials on the moon, and that's why they don't want anybody to go near these two sites. Well, I don't know about you, but there was a story I was told as a kid about Brer Rabbit and the Briar Patch. And I think part of it goes, oh no, don't put me in the briar patch, please, no, any place but the briar patch. And of course, he gets put in the briar patch, and that's how he escapes. Well, that's how I feel about Apollo 11 and 17. Of course, now that you said I can't go there, where do I want to go first? Where do you want to go first?
Okay. While you were telling us about all of this, I took the liberty to go and look this up and Google it to share with the listeners. And just so everybody will know, because what Gordon's talking about sounds pretty fantastic, and I don't think it's in common knowledge amongst the public yet. Well, at least I haven't seen it, and I'm pretty plugged in. This is actually transpiring, what he's talking about. I'm at a lunarscience.nasa.gov. That's a government site. One of their articles says, NASA has drafted guidelines to protect the Apollo 11 and Apollo 17 landing sites, listing them as off limits and including close proximity limits for ground travel and no-fly zones to avoid spraying rocket exhaust or dust onto an aging historic equipment. Which is pretty much the excuse that you said you gave them. And there is a part in here, the greater urgency for guidelines is sparked by Google's Lunar X Prize offer of $20 million to any private team that lands a robotic rover on the moon's surface. So if y'all want to join this contest he's talking about, Google is the one sponsoring it, and they're offering $20 million, like he said.
Right. Well, I think the contest is closed now, and there's 23 teams that were certified.
Really, I don't know. You're more plugged into that than I am.
Well, you don't just build a rover tomorrow and send it to the moon. How are you even going to get it to the moon? So the thing is they had to have a limit to this, and so they had a starting gate, and everybody had to be approved to get in the starting gate. So. But anyway, this is what they announced 6 months ago. Well, they just last month, they reiterated that. They made another press conference saying, we're telling everybody, when you go to the moon, stay away from 11 and 17, Apollo 11 and Apollo 17 landing sites. So, this is really bothering them. It's on their mind if they've held two press conferences 6 months apart saying, do not go to the landing site of Apollo 11 and 17. And, of course, they haven't said why. They say, well, you might get some dust on the historic equipment. Like, that's a problem. Like, I don't know. If I get dust on something at home, I spray some water on the cloth and I wipe the dust off.
Point I want to make, bring out more better defined, I guess you could say, on this one is, how long has this historic equipment that they call it been sitting there on the moon?
Yeah, since the first landing in 1969. And then the last one... I think
Mike, near what, 50 years?
Well, let's say 70, 30 years, 42 years.
42 years. And the moon, the lunar surface, is it not 90% dust?
Well, yeah, and of course that's another thing that they refuse to talk about. But there is methane in the atmosphere of the moon, and there is wind on the moon, and I even have pictures of a cloud crossing a crater taken by a man on Earth with his telescope. He was taking a photograph of a crater, and all of a sudden this cloud moved up, and he's like, what the hell? And he took a picture of it, and then it was over the crater, and he took another picture, and then it went by the crater, and he took another picture. So this whole thing, NASA is lying. They lie like a rug. I mean, just about everything they've told us is not for us. I mean, we naively think that NASA is engaged in the march of science, and it's for all of humanity. And instead, their only purpose for more than 60 years is to figure out how to get the elite to the moon and Mars, and after pole shift, come back as kings of the earth. And they've known about pole shift for 60 years at least. And their symbol on the NASA patch is a monolith, just like the book 2001 by Arthur C. Clarke, who is the one who also invented the the first communication satellite. He invented that, and he wrote the book 2001, and in it there's a monolith, and on the NASA patch there's a monolith, and then above the monolith are the 3 stars from the belt of Orion. And that's the direction that Planet X comes into the solar system, is from Orion. And so there's evidence of it all over, but they won't talk about it, they won't discuss it, they laugh at you if you bring it up, and they say, well, we're still searching for Planet X, we haven't spotted it yet. But the reality is, the extraterrestrials say every satellite sent up in the last 20 years, part of its entire purpose is to spy on Planet X. And they've got every satellite in the last 20 years that's still up there is actually taking pictures of Planet X every day. And that's why the scientists on Earth the government scientists are tearing their hair out, because all kinds of really unusual things have been happening, and they're worried that you and I are going to find out that we're about to have pole shift. And they're scared to death that they're going to have to be like regular people, roll up their sleeves and plant a garden and weave their own clothing using wool and plant fiber, and they're not happy about it, because these are people that are used to being extremely wealthy, billionaires and trillionaires, having everything their own way, and if pole shift happens and a large number of people die, and there's no more factories, and there's no more roads, there's no more fuel, there's no more government, who is going to service these people? That's what NASA is for, has been trying to figure this out. And being a normal, regular person, I'm sure you'll be pleased to know that NASA has not been able to figure out how to save the elite. But that was the original purpose, was let's build a base on the moon, let's go to the moon, and we'll survive pole shift, and then we'll come back as kings of the Earth. Which leads me into the next part of what I wanted to talk about.
Okay, go for it.
Well, there's this wonderful movie by Jose Escamilla, and I mean wonderful. It should really win a documentary award. The credits list at least 300 people, and the music is extraordinary, and it will be such a spiritually uplifting 1 hour that you spend watching this movie. In one sense. The other sense, it's going to shock the hell out of you, because Jose knows this guy who's obviously got a lot of money. He bought a state-of-the-art Celestron telescope to look at the moon. And he wanted to photograph what he was looking at, so he ordered all these very expensive cameras that go on this Celestron telescope. And every single one of them was low resolution. And he's like, what the hell do I want low resolution for? So finally, one of his friends said, let's go to Best Buy and let's buy a Logitech high-definition webcam and hook that up to your telescope. Well, guess what? It works. So he started, the astronomer friend, started filming all these things on the face of the moon. Now, people talk, and you've probably heard people discuss it on your show before, that if there are aliens on the moon right now, their bases must all be on the back of the moon, because we only see one face of the moon. And so whatever they're doing on the side we can't see.
On the dark side.
Yeah, that would make sense that that's where they are. So, but nobody really has, high-resolution pictures of the moon. And the thing is, that really got Jose Escamilla started on this, was that when you look at the moon, it sort of looks like it's in black and white. Like you walk out in your yard and everything's in color, and then you look up at the moon and it's almost like it's in black and white. So the question is there any color on the moon? Well, he got in touch with this astronomer, and the most incredible things are on the face of the moon. There are craters that look like they're filled with blue water. Now, probably because of the temperature, it's blue ice. But when you see this movie Celestial, you're just not going to believe the colors that you see on the moon. NASA has never shown that. But the funny thing is, the European Space Agency has its own satellites. They don't care what NASA says or doesn't say. And the Chinese have their own space satellites, and they don't care what NASA's trying to cover up or not to cover up. Now, neither of them, neither the European Space Agency, ESA, or the Chinese Space Agency, are going to focus on, yes, there are extraterrestrials on the moon. They're just not focusing on it at all, but they're having pictures taken which clearly show buildings, spacecraft, domes, statues, roads, mining sites, tunnel entrances, industrial buildings, and they're just releasing them on their websites. So that's what Jose did, is he went to this astronomer and used some of his gorgeous color images of the face of the moon, and then some of these incredible European Space Agency pictures, and then some of these Chinese satellite pictures of the moon, and put together this documentary movie. And let me tell you, you can think what you want, but when they get to the building that's on the moon, it's clearly got the number 2 on it. I mean, ask yourself, what government on Earth loves to number its buildings?
Just America.
You only get 5 seconds. Yep, ding, 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 that's the right answer. We love to number our government buildings. And there, on the moon, now this is not 2 dots, this is not 2 Roman numerals like the letter I twice, this is not some fancy hieroglyph that is being interpreted. No, this is the plain and simple English language Arabic numeral 2 on top of a building on the moon, which clearly, I mean, you have to be asleep at the switch to not automatically know that is a U.S. government building on the moon. I mean, what else could it be? Name one thing. Nothing comes to mind.
Nothing comes to mind, but you got to ask yourself, why use an Arabic number?
Well, that's our language. Would you expect them to put it in Arabic? Would you expect them to put it in Chinese? No, they put it in English. And that begs the question, Royce, if that's building number 2, where in the hell is building number 1?
No clue.
And if they've got, and you've got to watch this movie Celestial to believe it, you've got to see that this is on the face of the moon. This can be spotted from Earth with a brand new high-end telescope with a Best Buy Logitech webcam attached to the lens. And there it is. A building on the moon with the number 2 on the roof. So, I mean, you can say what you want about whether there are extraterrestrials on the moon, but when you get to that one building, you have to be thinking, well, that's the United States government on the moon. And of course, there have been rumors for years that there's 4 military academies. The 4th one is the secret military astronaut academy at Vandenberg Air Force Base.
Well, I've had Laura Eisenhower on my show, Ike's granddaughter.
Yeah.
And she said that her dad and her were both asked to be a part of, I think it was Mars missions, if I remember correctly. I'd have to.
Yeah, and there's rumors. There's people that say that they saw future President Obama was one of the people that went on through the jump room to Mars. So there's you can search for that on the internet, and of course a lot of people say, well, that's impossible, or who could believe that? But the United States has been capturing alien technology for almost all of the 1900s. I have a picture of a saucer that's having trouble being invisible that was captured by the Navy in 1938. Everybody talks about Roswell, 1947, but for all I know, and I have good reason to believe that it's possible that President Roosevelt, Teddy Roosevelt knew there were ETs because he met them. So, people say, well, the government can't keep a secret for more than 5 minutes, but is that really true? I mean, if they go around and kill the people that talk, or they go to the people and they say, look, we're going to bury you and your entire family and everyone you've ever talked to in the desert, well, who wants to talk after that? So
I don't.
I don't know how successful, how they achieved it, but this has got to be the biggest untold secret that there is. And do I expect disclosure? No, I don't. And I know there's people working on disclosure, but excuse me, but I don't believe that will ever happen, because what happened is the U.S. government made deals with selfish extraterrestrials. And selfish extraterrestrials are just like selfish people. Have you ever noticed that gangs of thieves can't even agree on what they're doing or how to do it, and then there's a falling out between them? Well, the same thing is true with selfish extraterrestrials. They're no better.
Okay, Gordon?
Yes.
We just got a caller call in, and I went ahead and took the call real quick, but I thought I'd let you know she's listening in as we speak. Caller, how you doing today?
I'm good. You?
Gordon, can you hear
Hello?
okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes.
What's your name?
Jennifer.
Jennifer. Nice to talk to you, Jennifer.
Thank you. Nice to talk to you, too. It's something that triggered me. It's when you said President Obama went to the moon.
Went to Mars.
Yeah, went to Mars, sorry. He went to Mars with also this gentleman. His first name was Andrew.
Yeah, Andrew Basiago.
Something. That's it. And
Andrew has been on my show before, by the way.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Anyway, go ahead. I didn't interrupt.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's unfortunate that my internet wasn't working, but I would have loved. I'm gonna hear that show on YouTube. So, and yeah, so it's interesting that you said that, because right now I'm studying a bit of that project. It's Pegasus. I'm sorry, my French. Pegasus. Pegasus. Pegasus.
Not familiar to me.
Spell that again slowly.
Okay. P-E-G-A-U. No, A-S. Sorry. U-S.
Never heard of it.
Pegasus.
If I put a P in front of it, it's Pegasus, the flying horse.
Pegasus. That's right.
Okay, now
right.
that I'm familiar with.
That's
right.
it. And not only that, President Obama actually went to the future to actually see how he was going to be president, and so did Bush, apparently. So
yeah, I've heard lots of rumors of that, and I can tell you right now that is not any technology that was invented on Earth. It was given to the government, to the CIA and MJ-12. It was given to them in return for the rights to do certain things like mine minerals and take certain resources. So there were deals being made where selfish ETs granted certain technology. And of course the government hoped to have the technology to go to the stars, and they never got that. And then they did go to the moon and Mars, and there's a story, it's called Project Serpo, which is actually very disagreeable to read, and but it's the story of military being selected and then sent to an alien planet. And that story is a cover-up for the truth, which is that U.S. military was sent to Mars, the moon, and also the dark twin of Earth. And the dark twin of Earth, it's the same size as Earth, and it's usually on the other side of the sun, but right now it's being photographed every day from Antarctica. And it's trying to get past Planet X also. So Venus, the dark twin, and the Earth are trying to go counterclockwise, and Planet X is trying to go clockwise, and they're all stopped in orbit. So, but anyway, all three of those places, the moon, Mars, and the dark twin of Earth, the U.S. military were sent, and they were all told after a month or two they were very unhappy, all of them. Because, first of all, they were in an alien environment, and a selfish extraterrestrial environment where nothing nice was done to them. It was very harsh and militaristic and very uncomfortable. They were told what a wonderful job they were doing, and then they were all executed. So not a single one of them was brought back. But if you've been following the story of Gary McKinnon, he is a hacker from Europe who broke into the Pentagon, and he found he broke into the Navy records, and he found a list of off-Earth ships, spaceships, a list of them, the names of the spaceships, the list of all the crew on the ships and their pay scales. And the U.S. government has tried to get England to extradite him, and if they could get him back from the UK to the United States, they would love to put him in solitary for the rest of his life, or maybe he'd be like Wilhelm Reich and he'd no sooner go to jail than a car thief would stab him to death. But in any case, the UK has decided to go really slow on this. They're not telling the U.S. government, no, we're not going to extradite him. But after 2 years, they still haven't done one damn thing to send him over here. So right now, he is safe in England. And he is the one who discovered the list of, now, you say to yourself, well, I thought the Navy involved the ocean. But when you're talking about starships and spaceships, you're talking about ships, and somehow the Navy got in charge of those. So actually, if you look at Area 51, that's the Navy's in charge of that. So the Navy has done far more things with space. And then, of course, if we have sent men to the moon, Mars, and the dark twin of Earth, then it's a naval project. And they aren't just army men, but they're men in the Navy. And supposedly they would take a room full of people and hypnotize them all and see who gets hypnotized. The ones that don't get hypnotized, they ask them to leave the room. Then they take them individually and they see which ones don't have any family, don't have close family ties, close friendships, a lot of involvement in their communities, and are more easily programmed. And then they program those. And supposedly the way they do this is these people will serve 20 years in the U.S. Navy on a starship, and then when they're re-hypnotized when they come back, and if somebody says, what did you do? They go, well, I don't really remember it, but I know I was stationed at the Great Lakes Naval Station.
That's right. They reprogrammed them just like in the MK Ultra.
Right.
Sort of.
Exactly.
That's right. Very interesting.
So, but I really think that you should look at this movie, Celestial. It's just going to blow your mind because you've got to see, and this is for me. You think of like friendly extraterrestrials would have a nice round spaceship. It would look pleasant. It would look like a nice object, and you wouldn't be scared of it. But there is a spaceship on a crater in that movie that was photographed on the side of the moon facing the Earth that looks like a giant frog, maybe 10 miles long, with a lizard eye. And it's a spaceship, and it's parked on the side of a crater, and it looks exactly like a giant lizard.
And would that represent the lizard type of ETs?
Well,
like
I don't know.
All
this movie has is pictures of stuff on the moon, but there's enough there that there's nobody that from this day forward can ever say there are not extraterrestrials on the moon. It's, and would you build a spaceship that is so frightening to look at it, just to look at it, you almost have a heart attack? Probably not.
No.
So what kind of person
I would have a big ice cream one,
Exactly. So starships that just intimidate, just the sight of them scares the hell out of you. Who would do that? Well, it would have to be selfish, dangerous extraterrestrials.
That's right. But
look at that movie. It's an eye opener. There's pyramids.
I will. For sure. But if we take, I don't know if you know Cassie O'Brien. She talk about all the.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, Jennifer. Is it's the same up there as it is down here. There's the good, the bad, and the ugly. So when I decided to contact extraterrestrials, I went outside and looked up at the stars, and I said, if you're bad, if you're ugly, forget it. If you're selfish, forget it. Don't bother. But if you're unselfish and you're nice, I would like to meet you. And it took me quite a while, but then they did answer by coming sending a spaceship and taking me on board for 4 hours, where I talked about the future, and they said, basically everything that you've been saying is true. We're going to change frequency on Earth. We're going to go to another dimension. And to be one of those who survives in that higher frequency, you've got to be an empathetic, kind person. You have to think of other people the majority of the time. As little as 51% of the time, you think of the other person first. And see, selfish people don't do that. Selfish people don't do that.
But what about grounding yourself spiritually?
Excuse me?
Like grounding yourself, because we hear so much about, like, we're going into the next term, you know, like the 5th term of what the Mayan calendar is saying. And a lot of people are talking about the spiritual and, like, how we have to ground ourselves and be one with the planet and understand ourselves and understand the humane society and even a rock to a plant to an animal to humans.
Yeah. Well, you see, everything on Earth, Jennifer, is conscious. We all come from the Creator, and that's why the American Indians would, if they cut down a tree, they would thank the tree. If they were going to kill a deer, they would thank the deer. So they recognize that everything is conscious. But the Mayans, you've got to understand that the Planet X, the planet that's in between the Earth and the Sun right now, is inhabited by 12-foot selfish aliens, humans, 12-foot selfish humans who created us as slaves. And the statues in Easter Island, as ugly as they are, that's them. They have red hair, they're 12 feet tall, they have long faces, and they're not very interesting, but they created us to be gold mining slaves. And they used part of the ape DNA and part of their DNA, and they did that on laboratories in the moon, and then they built laboratories on Earth, and they experimented. And that's why there's no evolution. What there is various experiments by the Anunnaki, and their experiments were to create slaves who were just bright enough to be good slaves and dumb enough not to know that they were not God. So they were the gods, and they instilled fear, and that's why they had human sacrifice. And look at the Mayans. They had no computers, no telescopes, and yet they knew, for instance, the period of Venus more accurately than NASA did until 1974. So they were given that math, and the reason why they were given it, they said, look, we're going to come back. Planet X comes back every 3,657 years. This is what to look for. This is when we're coming back, and when we come back, we're going to want you to give us a lot of gold. So until Jesus, every single religion on Earth involved human sacrifice, killing something. You either killed a human or you killed an animal, and that was all the design of these selfish extraterrestrials pretending to be God, that you had to kill to worship God. Well, they're selfish. Of course they would say that. But it was Jesus who said, from now on, you can contact God without killing anything.
That's right.
So, and that was at the same time that the Anunnaki were banned from coming to Earth. So, yes, there are some selfish ones coming here, but not the Anunnaki, and they're not able to force us to mine gold for them, and they're not going to be coming back, and they're not going to be starting human sacrifice again. But they'd like to, but every time they send a spaceship to Earth, wouldn't you know it, something goes wrong, and they just can't reach here. And finally they gave up. But they'd still be here if unselfish extraterrestrials hadn't stepped in and said enough is enough is enough.
Well, that's it. I heard that unselfish ETs they put like a shield around us. That's it. They quarantined us. But apparently now they've taken it out. They've taken it off, and they came down, and apparently they're sacrificing themselves to be human beings among us to help us.
No,
that's
look,
what I heard.
Well, Kathy O'Brien, I think her name is, she's one of those who met the selfish ETs, because that's who the government's in touch with. That group called MJ-12, that's who they're in touch with, is the selfish extraterrestrials. And some of them are selfish Zetas. Every single group has Some of them are selfish, some of them are unselfish. And the Zetas are no different. So the government contacted selfish Zetas, and now unselfish Zetas are contacting individuals. So if you walk outside and look up at the sky and say, I want to be contacted by the unselfish Zetas, then they can't contact you unless you give them permission. So if you give them permission, then that will begin. And they're on another level above us, so the contact is not going to be like landing a saucer in your yard. The contact is going to be when you have a tough decision to make in your life. They're going to be like guardian angels that give you good suggestions that steer you in the right direction that'll be the best for you and everyone else.
You know what? You brought my fear from 10 to 7. Thank you.
Well, you shouldn't be afraid to
fear.
Because if you're the kind of person that thinks of other people first and cares about other people, then you're naturally attracting unselfish extraterrestrials, because why would the selfish bother with you? They can't get anywhere with you. You've already made your decision. You've made your choice. The thing is,
are you saying it's like a battle of
good and evil?
It's like a battle of good and evil? Like we have one good on our shoulder and the other one's on the... Yeah?
Yeah.
And they can influence us mentally?
They can't. They can't. If you've already made your decision, the only people they can influence are people who have either decided to become selfish or those who haven't made any decision and are open to being coerced. But you, by being a caring person, a loving person, and you think of the other people, and before you do something, you think, well, if I were the other person, how would that affect me? So if you're that kind of a person, then the only people that not only want to contact you, but the only ones that can contact you are the nice ones. So if you suddenly turn selfish, believe me, you're going to get the attention of the selfish extraterrestrials. So, you know, when you have somebody like take a gun out and shoot 20 people in a theater, I call that auditioning for your next lifetime. And I know exactly what they're going in. It's not going to be pleasant, because people that have made this wrong choice are going to be reborn on planets where everybody is as or more selfish than they are. So, in a sense, so they're going to get what they want. But the unselfish people, the Earth is going to a higher frequency where only the unselfish can survive. And when you get reborn on Earth in the future, that's the meaning in the Bible, the last book of the Bible, where it says the meek will inherit the earth. It doesn't mean the stupid. It means people who are kind and empathetic and unselfish. That's who is inheriting the earth. I mean, I see on the news right now, there was another shooting just now at Texas A&M University. People were shot, policemen were shot. Breaking news. So, you know, these are desperate times, and some people can't take it. You know, you sound like a relatively person.
Well, thank you. I sit here and I watch the news and I cry for people that are shot and like what happened in the theater. God, you know, rest in peace to everybody. And you know, I was crying, and I'm like, I want to get down there. How could I help? But, you know, and I see a bunch of things, and it hurts me. And I've been like that since I was a kid. So
I cry when Lassie comes home. That's how I feel. Not even when he's lost. Just when he comes home. That's how I feel.
So, okay. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome. And listen, you know, I know there's some skeptics that don't like it, but you're gonna find, you're gonna be so happy if you go to the website zetatalk.com and read what unselfish extraterrestrials have said to a woman in Wisconsin. She's typed out 39,000 pages of questions from the public and answers from unselfish Zetas. And it's just gonna warm your heart and make you feel proud that you do know what's important and you are doing the right thing.
Perfect. And, oh yeah, I just want to ask you one more question. The royal family, do you believe that they're ETs, like they're shapeshifters?
No, but they're very selfish, and the Queen is already planning. They're all planning on bailing. I guess Prince Harry has announced to the whole world that he's going to go to his castles in Romania for pole shift. But the Queen is planning to go to Eastern Australia, and all of the UK is going to be underwater. So she really cares about her subjects.
Oh yeah, she does. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well,
we all saw it when Diana died, huh?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is these selfish elite. They're politicians. They're trillionaires. They're billionaires. They're bankers. They're in the military-industrial complex. They make weapons. They own corporations. They want to get rid of everyone who's nice. And one way to do that is scare the hell out of you and hope that because of that you go over to the dark side. But don't let.
Not only that, they want to keep us. How could I say? They want to keep us sheep.
Yeah, sheeple as slaves, right?
That's right. So like that, we don't get up to their level and we understand what they're doing. I mean, that's why they don't want Obama up there anymore. He wants to help the people, and the Republicans are destroying him. And in reality,
listen. I don't want you to think there's one person out there that's the ideal answer to anything, because you can't become president, no matter who you are, without being owned. And once you become president, you're still owned. And you do what you're told. If you don't do what you're told, then they get rid of you. So it isn't so easy. If you were to be president tomorrow, you wouldn't do any better than any of them, because what you don't realize is there's such powerful people behind the scenes running the whole earth. They control the media. They control the food, the resources. They control your lifestyle. Yeah, they program you every day, and they are extremely powerful. So really, the best thing you can do is to realize what's important on your own and live that lifestyle where you care about other people and you're helpful and you're nice. Those are the most important qualities, and they're spiritual qualities. Money can't buy those things.
No. Well, thank you so much. You're a very interesting man. I could talk to you all day long, but Roy's he has a show to carry on. I'm sorry, sir.
Oh, I thought I was just going to turn it over to you while I took a rest.
Well, I'll let you guys go, and I'll keep listening. Thank you so much for answering my questions, and
thank you very much, and bless you.
And thanks for calling in.
Thank you so much, Royce. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You know, I got to tell you, America made all the countries that got into a big, $1 trillion deficit. That was to their own downfall, because anybody in that kind of a deficit, they're wide open to whoever they owe it to pull the apron strings, and they lost everything because they sold their soul.
Well, that's true like in a normal state, but all the really elite rich people know this is the end times. And banking is going to end, money is going to end, governments are going to end. And so they're not counting on the long-range picture. They're trying to get as many resources as they can right now to build bunkers, castles, store away food. I mean, look at the headlines where it says there's a shortage of medicines. Well, is it because there isn't any more materials to make medicines? No. Is it because the factories aren't making the medicines? No. Why is it? It's because rich people are going to their doctor and saying, well, I'm taking Prilosec and I want a 40-year supply of it. So, and the government, they bought $1 billion worth of freeze-dried food and they put it all underground in Kokomo, Indiana. That's not for you and me. That's to declare martial law and feed their army. But they're going to have a surprise, because when everybody looks up at the sky and Planet X goes separate from the sun, and everybody plainly sees it in the sky without any special filters, without any special glasses, everyone's going to look up and go, oh my God. At that point, people are not going to go to work. Pilots are not going to go to the airport to fly planes. Policemen are not going to report to the station. And servicemen are going to say, the hell with the Army, I'm taking my family and I'm heading for the hills. So, there is going to be mass chaos because there's going to be earthquakes. I mean, there's already earthquakes. The United States Geological Agency is downgrading quakes by at least 1 Richter point. So when they say it's a 6.6, it's really a 7.6. I mean, don't kid yourself. Everything is being changed to make it seem less worse than it is. And that's why they would have the president make a statement. It was Bush that covered up Planet X, and it took us 4 years to uncover it and get the truth. But now we're telling you there's nothing to worry about. Go back to sleep.
Well, anybody that has studied the ancient astronaut theory knows that they've been with us since the very beginning, actually. And Sitchin had once theorized that they were run off by the Jews, but they were supposed to come back. Now, other people theorize that these ETs have never left. And, I mean, I think like John Rhodes says there's reptilian races under the earth. What's your take on all this?
Well, the Earth is about to change dimension, and the only way you can have the selfish running around trying to control the unselfish is on the 3rd dimension, which is what I'll call the dimension we're on right now. So if we go to the next dimension up, which I'll call the 4th dimension, I mean, some people say we're on the 4th, we're going to the 5th. You know, I don't need to quibble over that. But the point is, the frequency is going to increase. And at this frequency, the selfish people are not going to be able to run around and fool anybody. So they've all been offered, they've been told, look, you can either find love in your hearts and try and get along with everybody, or else we, the unselfish extraterrestrials, will help move you to another planet. And most of them have already said, yeah, let's go to another planet, where they can continue the same foolishness they're doing here. So, but don't kid yourself. Some of the most selfish people anywhere in the universe are humans from the Earth walking around on the Earth. It wouldn't matter where you put them. They would be the most selfish people you've ever seen or heard of. And so you've got this total mix, but it's basically all the selfish groups, like the underground groups, and there's many of them. There are, and there always have been. They've all been told by the unselfish ETs. They've had meetings, and they've said, look, this is what's happening. We're going to have pole shift, and then the Earth is going to step up in a vibration. It's going to graduate to another level. And so you have a choice. You can stay here and change with everybody else, or if you really want to continue your selfishness, we'll move you to a planet where you can continue, and we'll help you get there, because we're going to clean up the Earth one way or other. Either the Earth is going to change frequency and you're all going to die, or we'll help you move right now. Which would you prefer? So there has been a lot of that, but every single day the Earth is becoming a cleaner, nicer, more peaceful place. I know it seems hard to believe that, but I think that we can all be proud that we just finished the Summer Olympics without a single incident of mass terror or anything. You even had countries like Saudi Arabia and Iran and Iraq. I think they won 1 medal each. But rather than blowing up the place and saying, well, we're going to get rid of the infidel, they sent athletes to compete for gold medals. So I think that the whole world, well, first of all, we can breathe a sigh of relief, but we can also be quite proud, that there are, the average person on the Earth wants everyone to get along. And, I think in everybody's heart, and not everybody, because there's clearly selfish people that don't care about your heart, but every good person hopes that the world will become a peaceful place. And instead of looking at what makes us different, we'll look at each other and say, what do we have in common that we can work on now? And that's a beautiful, it's like the difference between the cup is half full or it's half empty. And to look around and say, not what do we have that makes us different where we should go to war, but what do we have in common that we can work on together and get to know each other and understand each other and benefit from each other. And so it's going to take a long time before everybody understands how to do that. And it's going to take a long time before it starts happening. But on the one hand, you just went through 2 weeks where the whole world focused on the Summer Olympics, and I think NBC handled them really badly. I was interested in some things, and I never could find out when or where to watch them. So I was quite disappointed myself. But I'm one of those that's going, wow, we made it through that 2 weeks. We didn't have a single terror incident. We didn't have tens of thousands of dead people. We didn't have blackmail, extortion. We didn't have bombs or fires or threats or invasions or terrorism. I mean, I think we should all pat ourselves on the back for that.
Okay. Now, in the chat room, Jennifer got in there, said unselfish Zada. Is that how you spell it? Z-A-D-A?
No, Z-E-T-A. Zetas.
Okay, Zeta is what she was asking about.
Yeah,
I just typed it in the chat room for her.
They're from the constellations Zeta Reticuli, which is visible from the southern hemisphere of Earth only.
Now, the other thing I had a question on my mind just a minute ago, and I asked you that, and I lost my place. It'll probably come back to me in a minute.
I hope so.
And before I forget, folks, as you know, Jennifer called in. The call-in number's 832-632-7904. And actually, I had forgotten. I also want to let everybody know that Gordon's going to be coming back again later in the month on August 25th at 1 p.m., same time of day. And what was it you wanted to talk about in that particular episode?
Well, I'd like to talk about a recent proof that Planet X is in the solar system.
Okay, well, I'll put up there Planet X News, so I guess that's a workable title for the show.
Yeah, because there have been some remarkable things happen. And there's two cover-ups that we want to break. And the first is the cover-up of extraterrestrials, and the second is the cover-up of Planet X and pole shift. So if one breaks, we're hoping the other breaks. And I don't see how that you could talk about one without talking about the other. So, but there's plenty of proof. And I'm sure, and this is what I'll be talking about, government scientists because I told you, they've got satellites watching Planet X all the time. They've got satellites measuring everything that can be measured. And they're all trying to figure out when is pole shift going to happen. And they're trying to cover it up at the same time. They're thinking, well, how can we find out when it's going to happen without telling everybody else? And they must be tearing their hair out. They must be carted off by busloads to the psychiatric hospitals, because there's no way there's too much happening to keep this covered up much longer. And listen, I don't care how you figure it, there's not enough food in this world to make it through this coming winter. The United States is way down in food production, which we're usually the breadbasket of the world. Russia is way down in food production. Russia and the United States, because of drought, China's had unending rains and landslides, and so their food production is down. So the only country that's really sort of done okay, if you call it that, is Canada. And if anything, they've been a little colder than normal. But Canada cannot feed the whole world. So what the government is doing now is they're training military police to police the streets. And these military policemen are capable of full escalation to death. So there's not going to be any messing around. If there start to be food riots in the cities, and look, I mean, I don't know about you, but around here the economy's no good in Maine, and can't be much better in Texas or anywhere else. So the government is really concerned over the fact that, forget Planet X, just food and jobs and money are going to cause rioting in the streets as we go through this winter, when there is not going to be enough for everyone, and prices are going to escalate. And, you know, it's one thing if you don't have any money but things are cheap, but if things are expensive and you don't have any money, then what are your choices? So the government is scared to death that there's going to be rioting in the streets, and there may very well be immense social changes going on this winter. Shocking changes in society, social change. So that's what I'm going to talk about in the next show.
Oh, that's fantastic. Now, is there anything else that you want to cover that we haven't had a chance to get to today?
Well, I just want to say that this Jose Escamilla film has got a photograph of this is a satellite. I think it's a Chinese satellite. A photograph of a statue on the moon. I forget how tall it is, but it's something just that you can't even imagine. I think it's 65 miles tall. Who makes a statue 65 miles tall? Now, the moon's gravity is only 1/6 of the gravity of Earth, so it would be easier to carve. Like, maybe they took a huge block of foam, and they got somebody like that did Mount Rushmore, and they just got him in a little jetpack flying around carving foam. I don't know. I don't know how they did it, but there it is. And there's a picture of the side of a crater where something is under construction that was taken by Apollo 16. So Jose found these photographs in the files from Apollo 16 of this crater and this construction of this building. Then in Apollo 17, looking down at it, the building is finished. The building is 6 miles by 10 miles.
That sounds like a good-sized building.
Yeah, and on the moon, too. And it looks like it might be the entrance to, a mining tunnel or underground facility, or maybe they process ore there, or maybe they build spaceships there. Maybe they're extracting helium-3. People say if we could only get our hands on helium-3, 1 teaspoon of helium-3 would power the United States for a year. So I don't know what's going on in the moon, but let me tell you, when you look at that movie Celestial, you're going to blow your mind. And I've been saving this sort of for last, but there's pictures of the face of the moon facing the Earth of glass domes over craters. And craters are perfect circles. You know, they're lovely things, ideal for putting a dome on top of it. Glass domes over craters, and you can see the sunlight reflecting off the glass. So there's no question that it's a dome. And you look through the dome, and you see vegetation growing. So, unless there's a human colony from Earth living on the moon and they're growing salad for dinner, somebody is growing greens that use chlorophyll. But I told you, they've already measured methane in the lunar atmosphere, and they haven't disclosed it. There's a wind, an atmospheric wind. There's weather. It's not raining or snowing, but there are clouds, and there is air movement on the moon. And this has been covered up by NASA for years. So this gets into the Mars rover that they just sent to Mars. What is that all about? I mean, we have people starving in the streets. We have people that can't afford to have a car or a house, and they can't afford to have food, and we're sending a $2 billion rover named Curiosity to Mars. So what is that? Is this like another one of those noble scientific explorations that we're all going to be so proud of as humans because we're going to extend the borders of science into the unknown? Is that what that is? No. Let me tell you what it is, Royce. The elite are still hoping that they could survive pole shift on Mars. They know they're not going to the moon. They know that. But Mars, you could actually step outside during the day and breathe the air and live. So, they're hoping that they can go to Mars. Well, there's no way they're going to Mars. So what is this rover? This rover is going to, are you ready? Hold on to your desk or hold on to your chair. This rover is going to announce that there's life on Mars. They already know there's life on Mars, but they're going to use this rover to discover it. And then they're going to discover extraterrestrial ruins. So if this rover comes across a piece of extraterrestrial ruins, or some microbes, or a seashell, then they're going to announce it to the world and say, oh my God, we just discovered life on Mars. Now, they're not landing in Cydonia where there's a pyramid complex and a face on Mars. They're not landing in these other places like the Hale crater, which has got the ruins of a city 20 miles wide across the floor of the crater, just covered lightly with dust. They're not going there. They're going to this odd place where there's this interesting mountain, blah, blah, blah. But the thing is that if they can get enough funding to get a manned mission to Mars, and they can design it, first of all, they'll discover some interesting things. Then the whole population of the United States will say, yes, we're in really bad shape, and we can't eat, and we don't have a job, but we'd really like to have a mission go to Mars and discover extraterrestrials. So if they could build one manned mission and plan for how it would land and how the people would survive, then secretly the trillionaires, and believe me, Royce, there are trillionaires out there. You think like Bill Gates has 50 billion, he's the wealthiest. No, he's not. That's nothing. There are people that actually have the wealth of all the great empires of history, from China, Indonesia, India, the Philippines, Japan, China, all the wealth. And they have the money. So if NASA successfully designs a manned mission and builds one spaceship to take, let's say, 20 men to Mars, the trillionaires are going to build 50 more of them. And they're going to take 1,000 people to Mars, and those are going to be the elite, and they're going to pay through the nose to go to Mars. And that's their hope. They're still hoping, even at this late date, that they could escape pole shift on Earth and come back as kings of the Earth. And that's what this Curiosity rover has to do with. And that's why it's so interesting when these rovers start running around on the moon, because I've said before, and I'll tell everyone again, in 2003, my wife and I were staying at the same inn where Dr. Edgar Mitchell was staying. And he walked on the moon in Apollo 14. And he told me that when he stepped off of Apollo 14, as far as the eye could see, there were extraterrestrial ruins all over the moon. So you've got a rover where NASA is planning to find extraterrestrials, and at the very least, signs of life. Whether it's now or in the past doesn't matter, because the point is to send people there to live there and see what they can learn. The secret plan is to send all the rich people there and have them survive pole shift. But at the same time, you've got 23 rovers about to go to the moon, and they're going to be discovering extraterrestrial life. So you can bet that whether it's rovers on the moon or rovers on Mars, you're going to be hearing some, for the average person, this is going to be mind-boggling. But I mean, for my wife and I, we've had saucers in our yard, we've had ETs in our yard, we've had ETs in our house. So how surprised at this can we be? And we're not. But I'm telling you what's about to happen. That's the whole reason for it.
Okay. Now, a lot of your information, though, isn't it channeled information?
Some of it is, and some of it isn't. I mean, like I just said, I spoke to Edgar Mitchell, and he told me. Now, what was he doing? Lying to me? You think really Dr. Edgar Mitchell from Apollo 14 was lying to me about seeing alien ruins all over the moon, or do you think I'm making up what he said?
There is a possibility you made up what he said. I wouldn't doubt what he said, though.
Oh.
But, I mean, I wasn't there for that conversation to say it actually transpired or not. But I do know that I've had Edgar Mitchell on my show, and there had been a lot of, bad feelings going on because other radio show hosts had quoted him as saying he had saw an extraterrestrial, and he wanted to get it clear that no, he never said he saw one, and no, he hasn't saw one. I also know that he has said before that he never saw anything on the moon, so this would have had to have transpired after he said that.
Well, it was in September 2003. I spent 3 days with him. My wife and I were at the same inn where he was staying. And we had breakfast, lunch, and dinner with him.
Well, that kind of goes against what he had already publicly stated, so
but
I don't know what the story on that is.
But if you look and see what he's saying, I mean, he never said, but this is my opinion, you can believe it or not, but I'm absolutely convinced that he is a member of MJ-12 if there ever was one. And I think that, he is, to me, he's a very secretive man. Prying a word out of him is like next to impossible. He's not talkative like I am, and he's not somebody who's willing to volunteer anything, and he chooses his words extremely carefully. But if you look at what he said about there being extraterrestrials out there, you'll see that he's saying that there are. But he told us the government's been keeping it very, very secret, and they've been doing a great job of it.
Yeah, he did indicate that he does believe the government is keeping things secret. In fact, I think he had went to one of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, him and somebody else, and confronted them, and that Joint Chief of Staff was told by somebody in a different department that the information was on a need-to-know basis, and even he didn't need to know.
Right. So, but listen, he is an extremely intelligent man, and he did confide that there are alien ruins all over the moon, and he saw them. So,
well, the only way I could possibly explain that is if he had possibly confided this to you in private as being the sort of thing that he would never openly state, in other words, because his open public statement is to the opposite. It would be the only thing that would make sense if he did that with anybody was if he did not want to make that kind of statement openly and publicly.
Well, I'm sure that if he wanted to make it publicly, he would have already held a press conference and said that. And I'm sure that he would have felt comfortable telling it to me, because how can he beat what I'm telling him? That I've been on ships, I've met ETs, I've had them in my yard. I mean, what's going to shock me about that, you know? But the thing is I have become friends with Nancy Leader, and she is a wonderful person, and people say, well, she's lying, she's making this up, this couldn't possibly be true. Well, fine, have it that way, believe that if you want. But I'm telling you, and I don't think I sound like a stupid, uninformed person.
No, you don't.
I'm a person that graduated at the top of my class in high school, college, and law school. I was selected as a future astronaut at age 15, so... And I've been in contact with extraterrestrials since I was a child. And I definitely remember other lifetimes like most people remember what they did last week. So, and none of them are spectacular. Like, I'm not saying I was Napoleon or anything. In fact, I had a lot of difficult lifetimes where things were very hard for me because I had made some really bad mistakes in previous lifetimes, and I had lessons to learn. But I am a very old soul, and so if you listen to me, the things that I say make a lot of sense. Now, if you're waiting for somebody to come from Harvard and say, I'm from Harvard and what Gordon says is true, then you've got a long wait, but you've got a heart. And I can ask you or tell you anything, and your mind doesn't know whether it's true or not. But your heart knows, everything that's true. And ask your heart. Don't ask your mind. Ask your heart. Does this sound like it makes sense? Does this sound like it's true? Just like when somebody comes up to you and starts trying to manipulate you, and you get a bad feeling, and your heart is telling you, this person is trying to scam me, then your heart tells your mind, don't have any more to do with this person. So I'm telling people, open up your heart, because if you're waiting for somebody to come from Harvard and say, I'm from Harvard and yes, there are extraterrestrials, or I'm from Harvard and yes, there are people who are in touch with extraterrestrials, or yes, I'm from Harvard and Nancy Later is real and Zeta Talk, all that information is real, then you've got a long wait ahead of you. But you yourself have established this precondition where if they're not from Harvard, then you're not going to believe it. Well, that's a choice you made. That isn't a rational choice. That's an emotional choice. You're saying, like you're waiting for somebody to say, I'm from the government and I'm here to help you. And this is what the truth is. At this point, I think most people know when somebody says, I'm from the government and I'm here to help you, they're already laughing inside or snickering, So, but do it your way. I mean, I love Kirk and his wife Becky, but they're absolute skeptics. They don't believe there's even extraterrestrials, or that I could possibly be in touch with them, or that Nancy Lieder is in touch with them. But Janet and I were lecturing. We've been together since 1990. And we've been lecturing publicly since 1990. And in 2006, I looked around to say, is there anybody saying what we're saying? And I looked at Zeta Talk, and I just about fell out of my chair. I was like, oh my God. Zeta Talk is saying exactly what we're saying. There's several things happening here. First of all, we're about to have a disaster, a worldwide disaster that's going to affect everybody. And then we're going to have a graduation to a higher frequency on this earth. The earth is going to graduate, and it's going to take people with it. So, like Janet says, my wife says, the bus is running. Are you going to be on it? The bus is running. It's going to be leaving. So that's the question I'm asking the listeners. Are you ready to graduate? Because if you look around, throughout history, there have been really good, unselfish people who always wanted to make the world a better place. And every time they tried that, some selfish person came along and messed with it and screwed it up and made loopholes and rules and exceptions that allowed them to have control. So if you were in charge of everything, wouldn't you be getting tired of this? Even if you gave everyone free will and you said, go do whatever you want, wouldn't you be really tired of the way the selfish people mess around with the unselfish? Well, that's exactly what's about to happen here on Earth. This is a spiritual graduation. So I can talk about anomalies on the moon, extraterrestrials on the moon, signs of pole shift, examples of scientific evidence that there is a planet between the Earth and the Sun, and all of those things. But the question is, when it comes right down to it, if there is a really big problem, are you ready to help other people, or are you only going to think of yourself? So, right. I can't, that's one of the funny rules about this dimension, this level that we're in now, is that there has to be the freedom to be skeptical. So go be skeptical. But if I only reach a few people and they understand what I'm saying, that yes, it is important to be good. Yes, it is important to be empathetic. And a lot of the stuff in the Bible is just outright lies, and it's actual reversals of truth. But if you read the whole Bible and you only get one thought out of it, and I'm not religious, so I'm not quoting the Bible, I'm not hitting people over the head with it. I'm just saying, if you read the whole Bible and you get one thought, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, which is the golden rule. If you could just follow that one rule for the rest of your life, you would be so much better off. And you don't need to read all the other words. Because all of those other words, that's what they add up to, is to put yourself in somebody else's shoes before you do something to see if you would enjoy it if it happened to you.
Right. Which is one of my policies. Now, One of the things I wanted to bring up to you, though, Gordon, is, you were talking about these anomalies on the moon and buildings on the moon, what have you. Is not too long ago, a year or so back, I had a Lynn Caston on my show, and he had a book out called I think I have it right here, in fact, The Secret History of Extraterrestrials. And in it, I remember reading that he wrote about these biospheres that I want to say it was NASA, but it might have been somebody else. It's been a while, had built that could be transported to the moon or Mars, that could be used as to colonize, in other words. It's possible that they, on that dark side of the moon have actually set up moon bases, in other words.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if there's a secret roster of U.S. Navy starships with crews who are listed and named and their pay scale is listed, obviously you would think that if the government has had secret contact with extraterrestrials, you would hope they got something out of it that would benefit us somehow. And undoubtedly it involved travel to nearby objects. Maybe not leaving the solar system, maybe not going to moons of Saturn and Jupiter, which are very foreign and very far, and not leaving the solar system at all. But it would make sense that we have had, one way or another, technology to go to the moon and Mars. I have a picture of a crater on Mars that looks like a United States Air Force radar dome. It looks like a golf ball. Hundreds of yards wide. It's a beautiful geodetic dome. It's white, and it's got all these little triangle sides to it, just like a Buckminster Fuller dome. And I've seen U.S. Air Force radar domes that look exactly like that. Smaller, of course. But here in a crater on Mars is this incredible golf ball. And everyone that looks at it thinks, oh my God, that's a golf ball. But then they realize the crater is like, 12 miles across, and this thing is maybe, who knows, a quarter of a mile across, this dome, this radar dome. But it's an exact, you don't need an atmosphere to operate a radar system. So you could go there and just set up a dome to cover up the fact you've got a radar dish there, and maybe you could use that to guide people in for landings and takeoffs. Who knows what's there, but we know there's pyramids on the moon. In that movie Celestial, you can see a pyramid on the moon. There's no question about it. There's pyramids on Mars. There's ruins of cities in Mars. The thing is that if you have ruins and they're covered by dust, when the sun hits the ground, it heats up what's under the ground differently depending on what it is. So if you send an infrared satellite overhead at twilight or after dark, all the ruins of the cities are hotter than the rest of the ground. And they show up just like an aerial photo of Hiroshima or Nagasaki. So whatever was going on in Mars, it's all completely destroyed. Nobody has seen anything that seems brand new on Mars. But let me tell you, you look at that movie Celestial by Jose Escamilla, and you're going to blow your mind, because they're growing food there. They've got these glass domes in which there's vegetation. These are color pictures showing green vegetation, and it looks like a plantation under this glass dome. So kind
of like the biospheres I was mentioning a few minutes ago.
Yeah, exactly. So, and there are pictures from the moon of what they call domes, shards of domes, 7 miles high that were made of glass. Well, I don't know. Do they have quartz on the moon? Are they melting it? Are they making glass domes 7 miles across? Why not?
Could be. Well, actually, I would say, according to what he's got on his site here, bigger than that, he's got a whole list of things here. It says, would you believe the Germans built a time machine in 1922 for communicating with other aliens, helped Nazis build flying saucer? A whole list of things like that. And down toward the bottom of it, one of the questions he asked, we have had colonies on the moon and Mars since 1962. Well, now, if they had colonies there, they'd probably be bigger than the 10 miles you're talking about.
Well, that's the thing now. I'm trying to explain this to you. Nobody has successfully moved from the Earth to the Moon or Mars. As soon as they get there, they wish they were back here. And nothing can make them happy. I mean, I had a friend who said, I've got a bunker in the mountains that'll hold 50 people for 5 years. He goes, I'm inviting you and your wife to come and before pole shift, to come into this bunker. We'll close the hatch and we don't have to open it for 5 years. And there'll be 50 of us all together. And I said, let me tell you something. I said, I could live in a cave for the rest of my life, as long as I could walk outside several times a day. I would have no problem living in a cave. But there's no way that I would live in a bunker with 50 people for 5 years. Even if I cloned myself and the other 49 people were me, I couldn't take it. I would go nuts. There is no way that I could do that. I have to be outside every single day, and if I'm not very happy. So yes, I could go live in a cave and never go outside if I had to. But I could only live in a cave if I could walk out the door, look at the sky, see what's going on with the weather, walk somewhere and do something and come back. And there's no way that I could live in a bunker. Well, that's kind of what I'm saying. Everybody that has gone to the dark twin of Earth, which incidentally is a black cinder, it has no atmosphere, no water, and no life. So that's like, imagine that you went to live in a pile of rocks. You know, there's nothing there. So that would make most people unhappy. But then what's the difference with the moon? You can't walk around on the moon. It's too cold. There's no vegetation. There's nobody to go visit. There's no society. There's no culture. So just what you bring with. Well, you know how everybody watches a commercial and they see a new product and they think, wow, if I just had that new product, then everything would be perfect. My whole life would be, you know, and it doesn't matter whether it's a new Lamborghini, a new Volkswagen, a new Ford pickup truck, whether it's a new vacuum cleaner, a new pair of pants, a trip to on a cruise, whatever it is, people get this in their mind, well, if I got that, then I would be really happy. But then, Royce, as soon as they get it, they discover, wow, that didn't make me very happy. So you can imagine being in the moon and Mars, where it's better than the dark twin of Earth, but you're in the moon and Mars, and at least Mars you could walk around occasionally, and there might be some more interesting things to see because it's such a much bigger planet and it has such a long history, and there's definitely ruins all over the place. And you could, you know, like I say, go outside and look at them. But even so, how long could you take that? Just imagine that you went through your house right now and I think you said you have a son, you and your son pick out your favorite objects. Let's say I said to you, you have to go into a bunker for 5 years, and when you close the hatch, you can't come out again. And you could pick anything you wanted to bring into the bunker with you. I'm telling you right now, it wouldn't matter what you brought into the bunker. It wouldn't make you happy. And it wouldn't take you long. It might take you as little as 5 minutes. It might take you a day. It might take a week. It might take a month. But you would want to leave. And you'd be desperate to leave. And then if you're told you couldn't leave, then what are your choices at that point?
Well, I can understand your point. Now, I was going to say we've been on the air almost 2 hours. So I was going to suggest we go ahead and do a wrap. And, you know, was there anything else that we haven't gotten to that you wanted to share real quick with the listeners?
Well, I think I've covered, you know, most of the things that involve these anomalies and what they might mean. And, you know, the big thing is we're going to have this Curiosity rover running around at a higher speed. It's a bigger rover. It's the other ones are sort of worn out, the two that they had there. they're still working, by the way, but they're not working very well. So we're going to have this really big one, the Curiosity, running around and doing all kinds of tests. I mean, it's the size of an elephant, so it's big, and it weighs a couple of tons. So it's going to do things that none of the other rovers were like toys by comparison to this one. So, and then you're going to have 23 rovers. God knows what they're like. I mean, each team is coming up with their own idea of what a rover should do. So you're going to have 23 rovers on the moon, and you're going to have this one big one on Mars. So get ready for some big news. And don't be surprised when it happens. And I'll tell you what I think it is. They're going to discover, on Mars, they're going to discover evidence of life and evidence of extraterrestrials. Now, NASA is not going to admit evidence of extraterrestrials on the moon, but really, would I be surprised if one of these 23 rovers comes across some ET ruins? No, not at all, because looking at the satellite pictures and the ground-based telescope pictures, and even the NASA pictures where they wished they hadn't taken the picture, because back then, they just took thousands and thousands of pictures and brought them all back. And they thought, well, nobody's really going to be looking through these. And the thing is, you know, if NASA takes 1 million pictures, how many people do they have to hire to go through them to take out the UFOs and the buildings and the spires and the towers and the antennas and the landing areas? And so, you know, as the space program developed, they didn't have the budget to take all that out. And even where they've got something live, like the SOHO satellite pictures showing Planet X near the sun, they've written programs that are supposed to identify, oops, Planet X is in the picture, let's automatically cut it out and replace it with some stars. But even that program's not perfect. So if you just keep going to the SOHO satellite, the NASA Solar Observatory satellite website, every 10 minutes there's 2 satellites. Every 10 minutes they each download a new picture of the sun. And sometimes you see stuff near the sun that you're not supposed to see. People have seen motherships, they've seen Planet X, they've seen the dark twin of Earth, they've seen, it's just extraordinary what people have seen. And a lot of times when you're looking at it, you have no idea what it is, but you know it shouldn't be there. So, but anyway, even where that's live, it's 2012, they're putting a new picture up every 10 minutes, still pictures get by that computer program, and then they've got 10 minutes to go, oh my God, let's take that picture down, paste over it with some innocuous stuff and put it back. And meanwhile, people like you and me who saw it have right-clicked on it and chosen Save As, and now we have it in our hard drive, and they can't cover it up. So, you know, I think there's going to be some very interesting developments, which is remarkable because essentially they've ended the space program.
You know, they haven't done a lot in a long time except for that rover I heard about recently.
Exactly. And,
of course, Richard Hoagland gave us a whole book full, but that was all historical.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and I hope your listeners have cable TV, and I hope they've been able to watch that show on the History Channel called Ancient Aliens, because that is the best, most refreshing show. And I'm hopeful that if they go from ancient aliens to present aliens or future aliens, that they invite me on the show. But with ancient aliens, I guess there's a lot more experts than me. But the thing is, I mean, there's ruins all over the world. And the one that gets me the most is in Bekaa Valley in Syria. It's called the Bekaa Valley. There's a granite platform that's like 2 miles long, and you can point a laser across the surface. That's how flat it is. And the granite blocks it are made of are immense. I think I remember they're 300 feet by 150 feet by 60 feet. Well, guess what? Granite weighs 200 pounds a cubic foot. Even if we could cut that, which I seriously doubt, there's no way we could move it, let alone build a 2-mile-long platform in the desert. So who did that? How did they do it? And what was it for? Well, there's only one answer to all 3 questions. Extraterrestrials. It certainly wasn't cavemen. So.
All right, real quick, like I don't think I told everybody this earlier, I'll tell them now. You can learn more about Gordon by going to www.poleshift.ning.com /profile /Gordon James Gianninoto.
Yep, I'm a member of poleshift.ning.com, and that's where you go if you yourself would like to ask a question of unselfish extraterrestrials. So you ask the question there. If it's never been asked before, and if it's not personal, they will accept the question, and then they will ask the Zetas to answer it. And the Zetas will give Nancy the answer, and she will type it out. So that's what those 39,000 pages are on ZetaTalk.com, is questions from the public and answers given by unselfish human extraterrestrials. So that's how Poleshift Ning interacts with Zeta Talk. Is you can't ask a question. You can go there and read all you want, but if you want to ask a question, like I wish Kirk would do that. Ask a question that's never been asked before, Kirk, and get an answer from the Zetas and see what you think. But I've done it, and I've had questions I had answered, and it's very interesting. So, instead of criticizing it and not believing it, if you just start reading on that website, I don't see how your socks aren't going to be blown off so far you're never going to see them again.
Alrighty then, with that note, don't forget to come back, let's see, August 25th, when Gordon Gianninoto, pardon me, I got a little tongue-tied there, will be returning. We'll be talking about the latest news with Planet X, and I'm pretty sure he'll have even more to report at that point in time, as he's always constantly reminding me new things are happening every day. So don't forget to come back and catch that.
I'm not a one-trick pony, Royce. I always come after new stuff to talk about. So, you never know what I'm going to say, but you're going to find out it's the latest stuff.
So be sure to join us for that show. And I'm going to go ahead and let Gordon get on with his day. And I'm going to hang online and be right with you guys to, mention some of the other shows pardon me. That hit me suddenly. The shows I have between now and then, and maybe a couple of radio shows I know about y'all might be interested in. Gordon, it's been a pleasure to have you here as usual.
Well, and same for me. I love being...
Go ahead. I think we lost him. Well, what I was going to say, I enjoyed having him here, but I think he accidentally got disconnected. Giving him just a minute to see if he can manage to get back in. If he doesn't, then I'll go on with the rest of it. Yeah, it looks like he got disconnected because I show him just now logging back in. So, in the meantime, folks, what I was going to say is you don't want to miss our show tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. Is that you, Gordon?
Yeah, I'm back.
Yeah, I was just fixing to say, I hope you have a good weekend. I guess you really didn't need to call back in because we were saying goodbye anyway. I would have understood.
Right. But I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity to be able to talk about these things. So thank you again.
Oh, you're welcome, Gordon. And I'll get those links to you as soon as I get them done.
Okay, well, I appreciate that.
Okay, you have a good one.
Thank you. Same to you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay. Now, tomorrow I'm going to have Gary Renard, and his website's www.garyrenard.com, and we're going to be talking about his book, The Disappearance of the Universe. And I think you're going to enjoy that show. And then this coming Saturday at 1 p.m., I'm going to have Roy Stimmen, and we're going to talk about the Big Book of Reincarnation, which I know there are some people in this here chat room now that's listening live now that are interested in reincarnation. So this is going to be a real treat for you folks that have an extra interest in that, and I think you're going to enjoy it. Also, don't forget to visit the folks at worldUFOtoday.com and learn a little bit more about UFO Day that just passed us and, you know, what you can do to make preps for it next year. Don't forget to stop by and see my friends at Supernatural Forums. If you look at the menu on the left under Other, you'll see a Friends link, and it'll take you straight to the page with their banners, and their banners are linked. And UnitedParanormalInternational.ning. And just 2 links underneath Friends, you'll see Radio Favorites. And I welcome you guys to stop by and check out UKPN Radio with Gary Brown as the host, and Jim Harold's radio show, and the Gralien Report with Micah Hanks, and Ohio Exopolitics and Mark Snyder. These are all hosts that I know, and I would recommend them. I think they got fantastic shows. And with that, I'm going to call this show an end. I know a lot of people may not agree with Gordon. A lot of people don't like channel material. It's a true fact, it can't be verified. But the one thing I would keep in mind is just because it can't be verified doesn't mean it isn't actual and factual. If it had to be verifiable, then why would anybody believe in God? You know, just a comparison thought to go with it there. That doesn't make either one of them any more true either. I would really suggest healthy skepticism and an open mind to check at the same time, and to find some balance between the open mind and the skepticism. And I'm going to leave you guys with that parting thought. And I hope to see y'all tomorrow at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. For you guys listening, it's 3:01 right now. So you can judge what time it is by you and get an idea, you know, by adding or subtracting from my time, what time it is in your time zone, because I don't have means yet to, hold on a minute. Pardon me, please, folks. I don't have the means yet to, haven't figured out how to code to put up a time zone thing on my page. Once I do figure it out, I will get it done. And with that, you guys have a good day, and it's been a pleasure. I want to thank y'all for coming. I couldn't have a show without all my listeners. Good night, and y'all have a good day until tomorrow.